So yesterday we did this promise kind of thing. So let me create one more file now. New file p03.js. So we'll continue where we stopped yesterday. So let's take this code where I create the promise. Okay, let me create the promise so you will understand. I'll create a variable p1 equal to new promise, and then there's an arrow function inside the promise with resolve and reject, and here I will put some asynchronous calls. So set timeout is a way to do asynchronous call locally. We don't need API to do that, and it will run after 3 seconds. I put 3000, and after 3000 I will say resolve success. I will give some message. So now, as soon as I create this constant p1 equal to new promise, this promise will start. This promise will be in the pending state until it will get the resolve or reject in its code. Another way is I can also create a function. Let's say get data, and in that function I will return new promise, and I will put same code here. So this in this function, it is the same promise which we see here. The only thing is that get data will not be, this part will not run unless we call this get data. So let's create another variable p2 equal to get data. So as soon as I invoke this function, this code will be returned. This part will be returned to p2. So it is similar to what we see here. Here we are returning new. Here we are assigning p1 equal to new promise, and here we are here we are saying p2 equal to get data. So get data is nothing but this one. So this is exactly similar to p2. So now p1 and p2 are exactly similar, and we can see p1 here, and similarly I will paste the p2. Both will be initially in the pending state unless we see the get then statement. Let's run this one. I'll say node p3. You will see both are in the pending state because both are same. Only the difference is in the first one, this promise is created immediately when we write this statement, and it will start waiting for that resolve part. In the second case, I create a function. So unless and until I don't call this function, I don't invoke this function, it will be not called. So once I call the function, once I invoke the function, this new promise will be assigned to p2, which is similar to new promise to p1. Now I can say p1.then. I can say p1.then, and I can see console.log. I will say I'll get response here. I will say response one is res. Similarly, I can do same thing for p2. I will say response 2 is res. So both are waiting. Now we get a res 1 and we get a res 2. So if you want to directly call this promise, you can directly use it. But if you want to create a function and then call it whenever you want, then you have to create a function with return of the new promise. when I'm returning, that means when I call this get data, it will assign this P2 with the same definition which we see it here. So let's try to see what we did here in the callback loop. Let's try to do same thing here in my P4 example. Let me create P4. Let me create P04.js. So if you see in the P1, we were passing data ID. Similarly, in the P4, I will also pass data ID. I don't need the callback because we're trying to avoid the callback hell, which we see it here. So we'll just only console.log this data ID. So here I will do console.log of data ID, which we pass it here. Okay, I created this function similar to, but here I'm using promise. I don't need this one. Now what I will do, I will call this as a P1 and I will pass 1 here in the get data 1 in the get data function. So as soon as I pass 1, it will display console.log of 1 after 3 seconds. Let's try to run it and see. I don't need this response right now. I'll say here, I'll say promise completed 1. So as soon as I run this p1.then, it will run only when we get resolved from this promise. So we are not using new promise directly. We are not using new promise directly. We are calling the function with 1 value and it will console.log of this one. Let's try to run it. Okay, so it's saying data is 1, which is this statement, and it's saying promise is completed 1. I can avoid this part also. Just I'll say p1.then, and then okay, I'm getting data is 1 here. Once as soon as a p1.then is called. So here in the p01, what we saw, we call get data 1, then we have to call get data 2. So what I will do inside this return statement, I will create p2 again with get data of 2, and then here I will say p2.then, and here I will pass arrow function. So as soon as I call p2, it will call again this one, and it will be showing me data is 2. So let me run it again. So data is 1 is called, now data is 2 is called. So it is coming one after another. Now again, after P2 is done, I can go inside P2 and I can write on P3 then P3 equal to get data with 3 value, and then I'll say P3.then, and similarly I will do with the P4. Inside that I'll go and I'll say P4 with the get data of 4. So I'll just write P4. So let's run it. So data is 1. So it is going one after another. 2 and 3 and 4. So it is going one after another. It is similar to this callback loop. And if you see, this callback loop is complex because after we get 1, we are calling 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. Similarly, here I am calling P1, then P2, then P3, then P4. So though it is similar to callback L, which we saw, it is similar to that. Complexity is still very complex, not very good. But here we are using promise. Here we are using callback function. So still this is not very good way, but we have to do this before we really move to the right way of doing it. This is also not the right way, but at least we know how we are using it in the promise. And that's why I created this way, though it is not the proper way, but we have done it. Okay, so another way. So what I'm doing, P1 dot then I do P2 dot then I do P3 dot then, and then I do P4 dot then. So now what I want to do is, I will write down this statement in a different way. Okay, so let's write down above statement in a different way. Both will do same work, but here we'll write down in a different way. So let's write down in a different way. Okay. So what I will do, P1 dot then. So when I write down P1 dot then, I put the arrow function here. Here inside that, I will return. What I will return? I will return nothing but this get data with the two values. So what we are doing, we are returning get data 2. So instead of writing it P2 dot then, I just return get data 2. When I return get data 2, that means the then of get data 2 can be attached here after this then. So I can write down here dot then, and here I can again put arrow function. Okay, so what we were doing here in this case, when P1 dot then was called, I created get data 2 inside the P1, inside this function, and I call this P2 dot then here. But in the second case, both are same. Output in both the cases same. Here, instead of calling it get data 2 here, I just return the get data with the 2. So the return will call this new promise, give me the new promise again with the 2 value, and then I can call dot then again. When I call this dot then, it will be nothing but, it will be the output of this get data 2, which is nothing but this dot then. So let's run this and see what's happening. Okay, let me comment this part. Otherwise, it will also run and we'll get confused. Okay, so 1 is called, and then it returns 2, and then 2 is called. So what it means, it is same thing what I have written it here, only here I'm returning it. When I'm returning it, I can create dot then here instead of putting it here. And then here again in the second case, I will again return it, get data with 3. When I return the get data with 3, I can write dot then with the arrow function. And here I can say done. So initially get data with 1 will be called, which will be the new promise. As soon as it will resolve, it will go inside this then, and I will return the get data 2. Now, as soon as get data 2 will get resolved, it will go inside this then, and I return get data 3. As soon as get data 3 will resolve, it will go inside this then, and it will do the console.log of done. So let's run it again. So data 1, then data 2, then data 3 is called, and done is called after that one. So what we have seen here we are writing get data 2 inside 1, and then I will use the dot then and then I call the get data 3, and then I call dot then, and then I call get data 4, and then I call dot then. In the second case, I call dot then, and I return the 2, get data 2. This get data 2 is nothing but a promise. So we can also call again dot then after this then. And then I can call one more time maybe with get data 4. So this is called promise chain, because this is the one level of chain, then this is second level of chain, this is called third level of chain, this is called fourth level of chain. So this here it is called callback L, and here since we are chaining the promise one after another, we are chaining one after another, chaining one after another, chaining one after another. So this is called the promise chain. It is called promise chain. Since we are chaining each then with another then, with another then, with another then. So that is why it is called promise chain. So if you see this line of the code, this is comparatively better than this callback loop, callback L. This callback L is too complex to understand because we are going one level inside, one level inside. But this chaining is also doing same thing, but it is little better in understanding the code than this one. So this promise chain is another way of doing same thing what we were doing with the callback L. That is, we are calling one promise, after that we are calling second promise, after that we are calling third promise, after that we are calling fourth promise. So it is similar to callback L, but it is also not the right way of, better way, best way to achieve the result which we wanted. So, but it is better than comparatively what we have written in this callback L. If we are putting inside it, here we are chaining it, here we are putting inside it. Here also it is very complex like callback L, and it is also not the right way to do it. Because, if you do this, you will be stuck in the callback L kind of thing, and the code will be buggy. A lot of bugs will come in the code. This is a simple function, so you will not see the real problem. But when you go in the complex project, you will see a lot of problems will occur because this is not the right way. It's not the standard way. It's very complex to see what's going on. You're calling this, and then you're calling this, and you're calling this. So if you look into this code, it is not the best way to do that. Even chaining is little better than this top one, but then also we will not get very good view of what's going on. But it is better than this one, and this one is better than the callback L. So just remember that we created one promise, and then we are returning that promise with another parameter, then we're returning that same promise with another parameter, and then we're returning it with another parameter. So it's doing the same thing what we are getting it here, but this is little better way of doing it, and this is called a promise chain. Any question on this promise chain? Still we have not find the best way of doing it, but we are trying to do it as much as we want. We are trying to do as better as we want. And any question on this one? Okay. Since you don't have a question, let me put this in some of the page, and then we will go to the real way which we want to do. So I just put it in the I just put it in one of the page which I gave you yesterday, promise chain. So initially this is the promise which we did yesterday. So what we did today is promise chain, where we have the function, and then we call the get data, and this is the one way of doing it. And here is the second way of doing it, the same thing what we did it here. This is called promise chain, because we are then, that is we're chaining the result of what we get previously. So it's called a promise chain. Any questions before we move the final way? Okay, no questions. Okay, let's go to the final way now, which is the ultimate way of using this one. Okay, one more thing before I move. Let's say if we want to show the error in any of way, let's say in all the way there is some error and we get the reject one. So where to show the reject one? We can show the reject in the last, and we can create a catch block. So wherever the error will come, it will go inside the catch block, and we can see the error here. So for example, if the reject is happening at the level this one 3, then also it will go directly to the catch block. So anytime when there is an error, it will go to this catch block. So that's why I did the catch block here at the end. In the end, we have to add the catch block. So anywhere there is error, it will go to catch block. Let me put in the code also. Okay. Okay, so let's go to the final version of this one, which is the right way of doing this. Let me call this as p05.js. So the final version of this is, final version will be, first I have to create this function get data in the same way here, in this way, in this one. So I will put the get data in the same way what we have in the P4. Only thing is usage is little different. Here how we are using promise chain, that it will be different, and this is the best way which we have to use it in our day-to-day project. So there is a concept called async await. Now what is the best way of doing it is async of, we have to use async and await. In the async await, we have to create another function, and that function will be the async function. So if I have function called as something process, I have to make this function as async. So this function will be async function, and whenever I call this get data, I will use await in each of the call which we have on the get data. So for example, I will say await get data with 1. Then I will say await get data with value of 2. Then I will say await get data with a value of 3. And one more time, let's say I'll say await get data of 4. So what's happening in this async function is I'm calling await and I'm calling get data 1. So that means it will wait till it will get the result from the get data. So it will wait till it will get the result from get data 1, and then it will go to second line. And in the second line also it will wait till it will get the data for the 2, and then it will go to third, and then it will go to fourth. Okay, so it will not process 2 unless and until 1 is done, and it will not process 3 until and unless it is done 2. It will not process 4 until it is done 3. So let's run this one. Since we created this function, we have to call this function. In the previous case, it was no function then, so we directly wrote it here. But since here we have created the function, because async await will not work without the function, so we have to call this function here. We have to invoke the function, so it will call this one by one. So let's run this one. So it is calling data 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4. So if you see this lines of the code, which is the best way of using this one, and compare it with this callback hell, this one is the much cleaner way. And if you get any errors or problem, you can immediately debug it. Whereas in this case, if you get error, you need to understand where exactly error is happening, and you will be lost in this callback hell. In this one, promise chain, though it is better in understanding, but then also you will get little more time to understand where is the problem. And then final one is the async await, which is a cleaner way. And if you write these lines of the code, and if there is some problem, then you can clearly find the way where is exactly the problem is. So it is easy to manage the code and better in writing the code. So initially, long way, 20 years back, people used to have this callback, and I have used it long in my project, many times in my project. We were using this callback function. This callback hell will come if we have multiple calls, then callback hell will come. And debugging was very difficult in this one because a lot of complexity comes because one data complete, then we call second API, then we call third API, then we call fourth API. But then promise chain came, which is much better than the previous one, but still not the best way of doing it. Then we get async and await, which is the best way currently used in all the projects in the market, and we have to use this async await in instead of callback hell or the promise chain. So this is the best way which we can use it. Okay, so now here I showed you how to catch the error here. So in this case of async await, how to catch the error? So if we have some kind of reject, let's say if we have reject, let's see what's happening now. So you see that we got the error after the first one because I rejected it. So we have to catch this error also. So in the async await, we can catch by putting the try and catch block. I can put try catch block around the whole process. So I can wrap this whole part inside the try part, and here I can say console.log error is error. So if there is error in any of this call, it will be cached and we can see it here. We can also use try and catch in each individual block, and we can know where exactly the error is. But generally, people try to put in the whole block, but it is up to you. If your code wants it, you can put try catch block around each one also and try to see where exactly is error happening. But in practical cases, we directly put try and catch here and we try to get the error at the end. So now if we run it again like this, since we have error rejected, so you will see data is one is called and then rejected. So we got the error. Anytime we have reject, there's error, and we see error is success and say failure. Or let's put failure. Okay, so error is failure because we pass failure here. Whatever we pass it here will come here in this parameter. Let's say if I put resolve and I put success. If I put success, then it will go here and it will not go to the catch block. The data is 1, data is 2, data is 3, data is 4. So we went in successfully. If we want to get this value also, then we can create a variable. Let's say constant r equal to await list. So r will get this value which we are getting it here. So I say console.log r is So if we want to get this value, we will assign this await part to some variable, and then we can get it here. So let's try to see. Data is 1, R is success. Because we pass success here, so R became success. So if you want to get the value, we will use it as a variable. Otherwise, if you don't want to use the value, then we can directly call this here like this one. So compared to callback hell, this one is much better solution in understanding also and in the maintaining the code also. So nowadays, generally, whenever we have some kind of promise or some kind of API, all the developers use async and await method rather than using this .then or .get data. But in some cases, you are free to use this .then also. So instead of await async, if you feel that it is a simple one call, no callback hill, then you can use this .then part and try to use it like this one. So this is not the way which people don't use it. They use it whenever it is they can or they want to. But if there are a lot of await, lot of backend API calls, then await will give much cleaner code. But if it is one or two, people sometimes use this also. So I have seen developers using this way also and this way also. So this is the best way, but this is the second best way. So either of that, you can use it whatever you want in your real life code. Any question on this async await? Okay, no question. Is it clear? Have you understood the async await part? Please type something. Yeah, if you don't understand, just type. Okay, let me create this in a new file, and I will share the URL. Okay, here is the URL which I will share with you. So today is day 2. Zero 08 here in my place. It is still 26th, 25th actually. Yesterday was 24th. And this is what we did it process promise async await. And we also did changes here in this file. Okay, so let's try to see this page again. So this is a promise async await, and this is a function, and this is the way how to call that one. Okay, so we are done with this promise part kind of thing. Now I will give you a couple of more exercise, and then we will see some small pending stuff which we have not seen yet. Okay, so let me give you the first exercise now. So here we get one. The first exercise was this one, and I give the second exercise also. Let me create that one. Yesterday I gave you the second exercise. Exercise 2. So only few people have done it. This is exercise 2. Okay, let's create one third one also. Let's create the third exercise. Now everyone has to do and put it in the chat, this exercise. I will give you in the chat also. You have 5 minutes to do this. Take 5 minutes or more if you want and try to finish this exercise. Okay. So this simple, let me read it and then you can start working on. So first is print out program started. So you have to just show the console.log. Then create a promise that is all after 3 seconds. Then log console.log of the promise while it is pending state. Then console.log program in progress. Then print out step 1 complete when the first promise fulfills. That means when this promise gets fulfilled. Have the first promise return another new promise. So after the first promise fulfilled, you return another promise that will fulfill after 3 seconds with a message step 2 complete. So there will be another promise after the first promise is done. This another promise will say step 2 complete. So once this promise is fulfilled, you have to show this message step 2 complete. Okay, so just any questions on this exercise? Can you do it? Do it in your computer and put the answer in the chat. No one is answering. Can you do that? Okay. So this is something you cannot use async await. This is something what we have to do using this promise. This one, normal promise, not async await. Okay, so you have to use async await. We don't have to use async await in this exercise. This is just simply the promise is there, use dot then and show me with that. And after we are done with dot then, there will be another one. Do it the same thing with the async await. But right now, do it with the simple dot then. Okay, do it now. I'll give you 5 minutes. Paste in the chat once you are done. Let me see who can do it correctly. So actually, I gave this exercise to everyone to do that. That's why I'm not talking. So once they will complete the answer, then I will see who has done correctly. Okay, so I see a couple of solutions, but both are not, both will not solve the purpose of what we have to do. Let me quickly do this solution, and if you have done it incorrectly, you can check. So first thing, we have to console this statement. So I write down the console.log. This program started. Then we have to create a promise which will resolve after 3 seconds. So let's put promise P1 equal to new promise, and it will resolve after 3 seconds. So it has resolved and reject. So it will use set timeout, and it will resolve after 3 seconds. I will go through the solutions which is in the chat after I'm done with this right way. And here I will resolve. Okay, resolve. Just I'll say resolve. I will not pass anything right now. And then what we have to do, we have to log out the promise while it's in the pending state. So this is a pending state initially till it reaches the resolve part. So I have to just console.log this P1. So it is something I have to log. Okay, I have to log this promise in the pending state. Then I have to print out this one, program in progress. Console.log program in progress. Then I have to print step 1 complete when the first promise fulfills. So when the first promise fulfills is nothing but when I get a p dot then. So I will say p1 dot then. Then means when the first promise gets resolved, I will do console.log of step 1 complete. Then it returns a new promise. So P1, after this P1 dot then, it will return the new promise that will fulfill after with the step 2 complete. So here I will return a new promise which has resolved and reject, and it will set timeout after 3 seconds, and it resolves after 3 seconds. Resolve. Since it is resolved, this is returned, so I can use dot then after it. Dot then, and this dot then will be after we are resolved with this second part. So here I will just do console.log of step 2 complete. So step 2 is complete should come when the second part is resolved. Okay, so let's go through it again. This is the console.log. This is one. Then I use the promise, and this is the promise. Then I log the P1. Then I put the progress, program in progress. Then after the P1 is resolved, we say step 1 complete, and we return a new promise which will resolve after 3 seconds. And this is return. Since it is return promise, so we can use dot then after this one. And this dot then is tied to this new promise. And once this new promise is resolved, we display the step 2 complete. Let's run it. So program started in the pending state, step 1 complete, then step 2 complete. Now let's see what you have written, and I will just put some comments on your one. So first Santosh has put it. Let's take the Santosh one. So this is Santosh solution. Okay, so he said console.log program started, which is good. Then he created a function. Okay, so function will return this set timeout. We can use directly this promise, or we can create a function and use it. And then he said program in progress. So just program in progress will come after you log this promise. So you are creating this promise here and putting this program in progress before it, which is not as per the task which is assigned. So you have to actually print this result. I have P1, you have result, so you have to print this result before you go to .then. So if you go to .then, you say step 1 complete, which is correct, but you cannot return the result. Result is the first promise. You have to create a new promise here. So you make all the get data again, return get data. Then it makes sense. You cannot return the result which is already in the fulfilled state. If it is in the fulfilled state, once we get this .then, that means result is in the fulfilled state. If result is in the fulfilled state, we cannot return the result. And we cannot go to this step because it is already in the fulfilled state. So this .then only comes when we have in the pending state of the result. And after .then, we will get the fulfilled result. Okay, so this is the problem with this code. Is it clear, Santosh? Okay, let's see the cake solution. I'll go through each solution so we can see what mistakes you did. Okay, let's go to cake solution. So program started, which is correct. Then you have to create a promise. So promise is created. So you created a new promise. You close it here. Then you return the new promise. Promise doesn't work like this. You return the new promise. Either you create a new function and return the new promise. You cannot return new promise here inside this new promise. This promise should have the resolve or reject state. You cannot have return statement here. Okay, so if you have created a function like this function, then you can return the promise. Okay. But you cannot create promise and return the new promise in it. So this will further it will not work properly. Okay, so you need to pay attention. I have given this solution. You can check that solution. Okay, let's see the last solution. Kate, you got it, right?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, let's see the last solution only. Whereas I expect everyone to give a solution, but I see only 3 people have given the solution. So this is the program started. Then we have promise which will end in 3 seconds. Here ID doesn't make sense. ID was in another example. So you created a new promise. See, you created a function and you created a new promise here. And you didn't use resolve and reject. If you don't use resolve and reject, this pro will always be in the pending state. You will never be able to achieve this then. And then you're going outside the function and saying p.then. Where is the p? Where is the p created? So if you're creating a function, you can only return the promise. Don't put so much code inside that function. Or if you don't create a function directly, you can write down this promise like directly this way. So this one will never work because you're creating a function, never calling this function and putting p equal to .then. So it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so this one is also not a good solution. Okay, so let me create this answer. I will put it in the page which I created. Let me exercise 3. Okay, I put the solution inside the exercise 3. Okay, so now I will give you a few more exercise. Exercise 4 and 5, which you have to do at home and put it in the comment. So let me give you the 4 and 5. So this is 3-1. This is a 3-1 done. And I will create 4 and 5. So let's create one more. So this you have to do at home and show me tomorrow. This is a big one. So you can go through it. Okay, you can go through it and try to do yourself. I will not go through it now, but tomorrow I will give the solution if you cannot do. So let me give you the link where you can see. This is the 4-1. I will put it in the chat also. And I will put in the PS4 number. And I will also create exercise 5. Let me create exercise 5. Let's create 5. Here is a link. So try to do 4 exercise and 5 exercise today. We will do both the exercise tomorrow. And we will complete this promise tomorrow. So tomorrow will be the last day for this promise part. And we will, day after tomorrow, we'll move to a new topic. So yesterday, today, and tomorrow all was about promise. And we will little bit do drilling tomorrow on the promise, how the promise really works. And I will see where exactly you're doing mistakes. So let me put this in the chat, in the Telegram chat, so that everyone who wants, they can do it. I will give this all links in the chat. Any questions on today's class? Anything you want to know or any questions you have? So tomorrow I will be drilling the promise again, and I will be asking questions from each one of you so that I know everyone understood the promise thoroughly, because today many people have done mistake in I told you that how to call p1 dot then. So people were creating p1 inside the function and calling then outside the function. So I want to see whether you have really understood the promise or not. So we will drill tomorrow the promise thoroughly. And there are a few more concepts which I want to talk on promise. I will tell you tomorrow. That's all for today. Any questions?